Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were supposed to be different. That was the pitch, right? The couple who broke away from the stiff traditions of the royal family to live a freer, more purposeful life. No palaces, no stuffy titles, just two people out to do good in the world. They traded tiaras for TED Talks, royal duties for nonprofit ventures, and in the process built a brand around kindness, impact, and authenticity. But now it's starting to look like the whole thing may have just been smoke and mirrors. At the center of this unraveling image is their charity foundation. On the surface, it was everything you'd expect from a modern philanthropic power couple. Slick websites, emotionally charged speeches, flashy partnerships with global brands. Millions poured in from hopeful donors, people who genuinely believed Meghan and Harry were going to make a difference. Behind the curtain, it's a different story. A growing number of insiders are stepping forward, claiming the foundation was less about charity and more about funding a lifestyle. We're not talking about a few questionable expenses here and there. This isn't a case of too many first-class flights or fancy hotel stays. According to multiple former employees and nonprofit watchdogs, we're talking about a consistent pattern. Donations being funneled directly into Meghan and Harry's personal accounts, often disguised as vague operational costs. And it wasn't a one-time thing. It's said to have gone on for months, maybe years. People close to the charity say the warning signs were there. Youth programs announced with fanfare never got off the ground. Women's empowerment initiatives were talked about, but never properly funded. Environmental projects remained frozen in planning stages, while the foundation's bank accounts quietly drained. Staff who questioned the finances were silenced, pushed out, or given the cold shoulder. One former team member claimed the whole operation started to feel like a luxury brand masquerading as a movement. That hits hard when you consider the couple's public image. Meghan and Harry have built a post-royal identity around being relatable, grounded, and purpose-driven. They talk about healing trauma, supporting underrepresented voices, and fighting for those who don't have a platform. It's exactly that message that made people trust them. That's why thousands of everyday people donated what little they could. It's why giant corporations signed massive checks. They believed they were helping build something real. Turns out, they might have just been paying for another luxury estate or a trip on a private jet. And here's where things get worse. This isn't just about a breach of trust. It could be a criminal matter. Financial investigators in the UK are reportedly looking into suspicious money transfers tied to the foundation. According to sources close to the probe, large sums of money were traced from donation accounts to offshore holdings and personal accounts associated with the couple. These aren't rumors whispered in hallways anymore. These are real investigations led by professionals who know exactly what they're looking for. The silence from Meghan and Harry has been deafening. No detailed explanations, no public sit-downs to walk through the numbers, just vague legal denials and polished Instagram posts. And that silence is only making things look worse, because when you're standing on a platform built on integrity, the absence of clarity starts to feel a lot like guilt. The nonprofit world is watching. Donors are demanding receipts, and people who once cheered for this fairy tale are starting to wonder if they've been duped. The smiling speeches, the photo ops, the brand deals, it all hits different now that the money trail is starting to surface. Behind closed doors, the vibe inside the charity reportedly shifted long before the public caught on. Staffers say the mission became unclear, the priorities blurred. Meetings started to revolve less around outreach and more around optics. One person described it as working inside a PR engine that wore a nonprofit costume. Internally, there were promises of big initiatives, yet when it came time to allocate funds or actually launch the programs, things got quiet, oddly quiet. According to people who were there, one of the earliest red flags came from the budget meetings. Staff were shocked at how little money was being directed to actual charitable projects, compared to how much was being spent on consultants, travel coordination, and strategic development. The problem wasn't just the vague labels, it was that no one seemed able to explain what those terms meant or who exactly was getting paid. Some said the numbers on the spreadsheets just didn't make sense. You'd see $50,000 listed under community research, But when asked what that entailed, the answers would dance around the question or shift the blame. Nobody wanted to look too closely. Then came the emails. Staff started seeing correspondence where Meghan or Harry would personally approve certain expenses that didn't appear related to any charity mission. One former employee shared that invoices for luxury stays and private chefs were flagged multiple times, yet cleared every time. The excuse? It's part of branding. Apparently, maintaining a certain image was categorized as necessary to attract donors, even if the funds were originally intended to serve homeless families or underprivileged youth. That's where the narrative started falling apart. Some team members raised concerns, thinking maybe there was a misunderstanding or internal mismanagement. But the moment they spoke up, they found themselves left out of email threads, excluded from meetings, and in some cases, quietly dismissed from the team. It became clear questions weren't welcome. One source even said there was a list, an actual list of employees considered problematic simply because they kept asking where the money was going. Meanwhile, the couple's public appearances kept growing more glamorous. Meghan would take the stage at conferences, delivering passionate monologues about empathy and female empowerment, while wearing designer outfits worth more than the annual salary of some staffers. Harry would talk about climate change and sustainability right before boarding a private jet for another photo shoot or speaking engagement. It all looked good on camera, but behind the scenes, disillusionment was setting in. Financial experts who've seen fragments of the charity's internal records say there's a troubling pattern. A large portion of the money brought in never made it to the ground level. Instead of funding shelters or creating scholarships, the majority of donations were allegedly absorbed by administrative overhead, though even that term was apparently stretched beyond its legal limits. When auditors dug deeper, they found that some of the expenses were routed through shell companies with ties to personal associates of the couple. That's when alarm bells really started ringing. To make matters worse, several corporate sponsors who had partnered with the charity are now reviewing their contracts. These aren't small-time donors. We're talking about global brands who handed over hundreds of thousands, even millions, believing they were supporting legitimate causes. Some have paused future payments, others are demanding a full audit. And more than one has quietly removed references to the partnership from their website. The public may still be waiting for answers, but behind the scenes, it's already clear a major reckoning is underway. The people who once stood beside Meghan and Harry, the ones who believed in the mission and gave their time, energy, and reputations, many of them are now walking away. The investigation officially kicked off with little fanfare, but once it started, things escalated quickly. UK authorities launched a full financial review of the charity's accounts, pulling bank records, donation logs, and offshore account trails. What they found, according to early leaks, was a mess. Large transfers were traced to shell corporations and tax havens, and some deposits were flagged as personal consulting fees with no record of what services were actually provided. The paper trail wasn't just sloppy, it was suspicious. One insider close to the legal team said that over $2 million in donor funds were transferred within a span of 5 months to accounts that couldn't be publicly justified. Some of those accounts were tied to consultants with no online presence, no LinkedIn profiles, and no track record of work in the nonprofit sector. Investigators now believe those entities may have been used to quietly reroute funds without drawing attention. The entire operation, as one analyst put it, seemed designed to look legitimate while doing the opposite. What makes this even more dangerous for Meghan and Harry isn't just the money, it's the intention. In UK law, misusing charitable donations isn't treated lightly. It doesn't matter how famous you are. If the probe reveals that they knowingly diverted funds for personal use, they could be looking at legal consequences that go far beyond bad press. We're talking courtrooms, criminal charges, and the kind of reputational damage that doesn't fade with a Netflix special. Lawyers for the couple have issued brief, generic statements denying wrongdoing. They've blamed the uproar on disgruntled former employees and misinterpretations. But here's the problem. Those former employees are showing up with receipts, memos, emails, whistleblower complaints that were filed and ignored. Some of these documents, reportedly now in the hands of investigators, point to direct involvement from the couple in signing off on financial decisions that had nothing to do with charity work. That's where the narrative begins to break in a very public way. Several prominent donors are speaking out too. One woman, a well-known philanthropist, shared that she gave $50,000 to support youth education through the foundation. She says she later discovered that no such programs had ever been launched in the regions they promised to serve. When she requested a report on how her money was spent, she received vague pie charts and no detailed breakdown. Her legal team is now considering action. All of this lands at the worst possible time. Meghan and Harry have leaned heavily into public appearances and content deals to maintain relevance. Their entire brand is built on being the couple who cares, the underdogs who walked away from royalty to live with purpose. But if that story falls apart, if the compassion is exposed as a marketing tool and the charity as a financial shell, there may be nothing left to sell. There's also a growing sense that this scandal could reshape how celebrity-led nonprofits are regulated. Lawmakers are now calling for tighter rules around charitable foundations linked to public figures. Some are even proposing background checks and third-party audits as mandatory before any celebrity group can receive major donations. If those changes happen, the ripple effect could stretch across the entire industry. For Meghan and Harry, the damage might already be irreversible. Their silence, once seen as dignity, now reads as avoidance, and the public isn't buying the carefully curated image anymore. People want numbers, accountability, and most of all, truth. The fairy tale they built didn't just crack, it collapsed. And what's left behind is a harsh reminder that even the most glamorous faces can hide the ugliest truths.